your reaction when you heard the news initially?
Oh, I think all the players were pretty shocked. We found out at the airport just before taking off to Adelaide, and I guess a few players had heard, from Hogs directly, but it was quite reassuring news at the same time that it was put into perspective to the group, and obviously Hogs has gone through a fair bit over the last probably 2 months, but at the same time we've seen a 22-year-old bloke mature in front of our eyes, and he's handled, I guess, all the adversity that he's faced with terrific resilience and maturity. So, his attitude and I guess his positivity towards this little setback, was as good as it could be, and I think he's really looking forward to just getting back and getting involved and playing some footy again.
And the fact that the diagnosis is about as good as it can be must be a great sort of boost for everyone, really.
Oh, there's no doubt about that. I think people can tend to jump to conclusions, particularly when the word cancer is mentioned, and obviously it's quite, daunting when you consider that Hogs' father had passed away only a couple of weeks earlier from the disease. So, as I said before, it was kept in perspective to the playing group. Hogs has, received some pretty good news, or as good a news as you can around that, and he faces a minor operation and probably 4 to 5 weeks recovery, and then we expect him to be back as good as new, and he's been reassured with all other tests that it hasn't spread to his body, and it's as good as it can be.
Not too many 22-year-olds have been through what he's been through, and you've mentioned the maturing in front of your eyes. Is this going to hold him in good stead down the track?
I think if you want to put a positive light on it, I think there's no doubt about that. I think at the moment, Hogs would be going through a range of emotions. Even people that sort of sit one out and one back and sort of watch what he's going through, sort of feel for him. But as I said before, his positivity, his body language, the way he's just handled things, there's been a lot for such a young guy and for quite a private person. Hogs sort of shies away from the limelight, I guess, and doesn't really, sort of love that aspect of it. But the fact that he's been able to handle it as well as he has, I think there's no doubt, down the track he'll look back on it, and some of the, I guess, in particular the resilience that he's built over probably the last 2 months will definitely hold him in good stead.
Have you spoken to him? Has he been around the playing group in the past?
He was in the other day, bubbly as he could be, and he was sort of cracking some gags, and I spoke to our club doc over in Adelaide actually, and he said he was in terrific spirits, and he was in here the other day, getting around the boys, and as I said, he's sort of keeping it pretty low key himself, and I guess receiving the news that everything should be sweet after he has the operation. I think he's quite positive. I think he wants to sort of get some normality back with his life, and get back in here and get stuck into playing footy and just being a normal 22-year-old again.
How did the group react when you heard the news at the airport?
I think for the players that didn't know, there was a little bit of shock, but as I said before, it was put into perspective straight away with the diagnosis that our club doctor gave us. He assured us all that Hogs will just face a minor procedure in hospital, and then there'll be a bit of a process to recover from that, and then he'll be back as good as new.
I think the doctor said 4 to 8 weeks recovery, but is Hogs the sort of guy that will want it to be the 4-week mark?
I would have thought so. In particular with some of the stuff that he's faced over, probably the last 6 weeks in particular. I think he's just keen to get back in here and get stuck into some training, get around the boys, and get some real positivity back with being able to play some footy and win some games.
Does this positivity help the group, I guess, move on and not be a distraction for what you're trying to do on the field?
Yeah, I don't think there's any doubt about that. I think the entire footy club has obviously got behind him. He's got a huge amount of support, both with his family and friends, but also everyone in the footy club. He's got terrific medical staff looking after him as well. So I guess all that love and support that's around him at the moment, it's very reassuring for us. And as I said, his attitude has been so good that it's hard not to be super positive for him and look forward to having him back.
You guys kind of got together before the game and sort of thought that by playing sort of the best that you could would be the best way to sort of show your support for him?
Oh, I think it was definitely mentioned, particularly when one of our mates is facing, I guess some of the things that Hogs has faced, in particular the news that he recently got, or middle of last week. I think it was an opportunity for us to draw on some of that inspiration, particularly with, as I said, about how he's handled himself and faced adversity. I think, it pales to insignificance with the fact that, we're playing a game of footy and we've got one of our mates who's going through some of the stuff that he's been through. So, our best way of honouring that and supporting him was performing on the weekend and making sure we can keep a really positive vibe in the footy club and keep supporting him as much as we can and encouraging him to recover as well and as fast as he can and get him back out there with us.
What can you do with teammates with him?
For him, support him, mate. I'm sure he's received probably thousands of texts this morning. Our guys will follow up and get around him over the next, couple of weeks. I'm assuming he'll be back here reasonably quickly and get stuck into some rehab stuff that will hopefully get him back on track sooner rather than later. And, as mates do, we'll get around him and support him through the range of emotions that he might face. But I think at the same time, as I said before, there's been some real perspective and maturity shown on his behalf, and I expect him to recover and handle that as well as he has this week, and he'll be back bigger and better than ever, I think.
Good on you, mate. Cheers, thanks, guys.